They declared me dead to my face. So I cut the power on the $500,000 wedding I paid for. My name is Malcolm Reed. I'm 68 years old, and I've got copper scars across these hands from a lifetime of fixing the leaks other folks pretend not to see. Tonight, my youngest, Nia, looked out across a ballroom of Atlanta's old black society and introduced a polished stranger as her father, while the real one sat at a table by the kitchen, listening to a string quartet I hired and trying not to taste bile. If you've ever built something from nothing and then watched your own child erase you like chalk in the rain, then you already know why I came here in a rented tux with a lawyer, a folder of contracts, and a decision that would ruin dessert. The Langston House in Buckhead isn't subtle. 2-story white columns, glistening marble floors, portraits of dignitaries and HBCU luminaries staring down with patient judgment. Saturday, June 15th, 2024, 4:30 p.m. I ease my 2018 F-150 into a valet line of matte black G-Wagons and pearl Bentleys. The valet kid, smooth fade, nervous smile, looked at my truck like it was a lunchbox at a gala, then took the keys with a yes, sir that didn't quite reach his eyes. My tux from Men's Warehouse cost $89 for the day, which meant it pinched when I breathed and sagged when I sat. Every other man had fabric that flowed like water and price tags that could cover a semester at Spelman. Inside, the chandeliers threw light like confetti over 350 guests, CEOs, judges, surgeons, and people whose family names were attached to scholarships at Morehouse and Clark Atlanta. The guest list was a sociology textbook come to life. Old church hats, new crypto money, and the careful choreography of who sits where so the pictures look inevitable. And there was Nia, floating through the room in a silk cloud of a gown I purchased on a day I pretended my chest didn't ache. $32,000 for a dress. I signed a payment like a father swallows pride, quietly, and without making a scene. She saw me when I stepped under the chandeliers. Her eyes flicked to mine, and away again like I was a stranger who'd asked directions. The planner, a hawk-eyed woman named Monique Carter with a headset and a voice that could part crowds, checked her list and guided me toward table 21. Kitchen adjacent. Buzzing speakers. Draft from the service hallway. The place you put cousins you barely know and family you wish would cancel. That's me, I said, and she gave me the soft smile people reserve for good men they're about to disrespect. Nia anchored the head table with her new family, the Whitakers. Old Atlanta money, not plantation ghosts and mid-juleps. This was board seats, endowments, and condos sprouting over old storefronts on Auburn Avenue. The groom, Julian Whitaker III, had a barbersharp hairline and a Harvard MBA he wielded like armor. His father, Lionel, wore a tuxedo cut, so well it could have been air, and a ring engraved with the kind of legacy that finds your hand before you extend it. And then there was the man Nia called Daddy, Professor Franklin Moore. Distinguished, silver at the temples, a Morehouse voice that turned syllables into sermons. I'd never seen him before in my life. I sat at table 21 with plus ones and a cousin on my mother's side, whose name I kept losing and finding again. We discussed the heat, the flower arches, the live painter capturing the ceremony on canvas like love could be gessoed into permanence. No one asked what I did. They saw the tux and the truck and decided. Truth is, I'm a licensed master plumber who turned leaky pipes into a property portfolio while folks slept. Reed Mechanical and Property, LLC. 27 roofs, a team of 34 techs, and a ledger my CPA says looks like a miracle. Last year's revenue, $9.4 million. Net, just shy of that. The way real estate cushions your fall if you're disciplined and lucky, and you keep your promises. That's what I built while Nia grew teeth and opinions. I paid when she needed paying for. Private middle school when Westview's classrooms got too crowded. $14 grand a year. Spelman College, 60-something thousand and change per year, for 4 years. An apartment in Midtown when the gallery internship didn't pay. $3,000 a month plus utilities, which is code for love looks like auto debits at 2 a.m. And now this wedding. $180,000 for the venue. $85,000 for catering. $29,000 for flowers, flown in from Miami because local orchids apparently breathe wrong. $15,000 for a quartet of symphony players who look like they practice smiling between movements. 12 for a photographer whose portfolio could sell bottled sunlight. 8,500 for a 7-tier cake tall enough to need a building permit. $500,000. My signature on every line. Nia made one mistake. She forgot to read the fine print of what it costs to throw away your blood. Every invoice had my name. Every wire transfer bled from my business account. Every email from Monique Carter copied me and Nia together. 24 threads for months, all with Mr. Reed, in bold like a bell you can't unring. She knew who was paying. She decided to pretend I was Unalive because the story looked better framed that way. Cocktail hour spread like honey. The distance between table 21 and the center of the universe widened with every laugh. I watched Nia pose with the Whitakers and the professor, watched her fingers twine around a man who'd never scrubbed vomit from her bedsheets at 2 a.m. or learned double Dutch to make her smile after a mean girl said her hair was wrong. Every grin was a small wound. I reached into my inside pocket and felt papers worn soft. Bank statements showing my $500,000 in, contracts with my ink, emails printed so no one could accidentally delete them. I didn't come to fight. I came prepared. My phone buzzed. A text from Nia. Daddy, please don't mention the plumbing business tonight. This is important to me. 30 years of 5 a.m. callouts, of bleeding radiators and burst mains and Christmas Eve emergencies, where I went because nobody else would. That was what she named as a stain on her night. Practical. She called me once, like I was a wrench. Not brilliant. Not accomplished. Practical. Tools don't get seats at head tables. Folks recognized me anyway. Not society royalty. People who'd needed help. Miss Thelma from Cascade, whose upstairs bath tried to baptize her kitchen last winter. Dr. Rochelle Bennett, who owns a clinic in College Park. We renovated her whole plumbing system during the 2019 flu crush. The Chun brothers from a restaurant in West End whose grease trap decided Good Friday was the right time to repent. They came to my table with smiles too big for discretion, and in their voices was the thing money can't buy. Respect earned watching a man show up when it's inconvenient. Respect travels fast. So do whispers. That's Nia's father? I thought, didn't she say, Lord have mercy? Within minutes, the story slid through sequins and cufflinks. Lionel Whitaker clocked the shift and headed my way. He moved like a man who has never asked permission and never apologized for arrival. Mr. Reed, he said, palm warm, smile calibrated. A pleasure. Lionel Whitaker. Likewise. I didn't stand. You don't bow when you own your name. You look familiar, he added, head cocked. I unclogged your kitchen main 2 springs ago, I said. Sunday morning. Charity brunch at your place. You had the Falcons game on mute, and your grandson kept asking me why I like the Saints. Something behind his eyes flickered, then reset to boardroom. Ah, yes. You did excellent work. Thank you. Nia is fortunate to have such a resourceful father. Resourceful. Not successful. Not formidable. Resourceful like duct tape. He patted my shoulder like checking currency, then floated away, all gravitas and velvet control. But the room had tilted. Nia saw. Her face went rose, then ash. She hissed something to Julian, who glanced at me the way a man surveys a problem he's never had to solve, annoyed that it exists. The quartet shifted to Pachelbel. Servers offered champagne that cost more than a week's groceries. Orchids perfumed a room already drunk on itself. But there was a hitch in the song now. You could feel it in how people glanced toward the kitchen corner, where the help sat beside their pride. Avery Johnson, said a voice at my elbow. Venue manager. Crisp navy suit, eyes like a spreadsheet. She'd spent 6 months working with me over speakerphone, while I drove from site to site. She liked efficient men who answered questions and didn't haggle. Everything good, Mr. Reed? She asked, gentle but wired. Everything's fine, I said. For now. If you need anything, I'm at your service. Service. That word was going to matter. Julian made his way to me. 30 years old, watch bright enough to blind, handshake limp as a wet envelope. Sir, he said, thank you for raising such an extraordinary woman. She is extraordinary, I agreed. She'll never have to worry about money again, he added, smiling like benevolence. The Whitaker family takes care of our own. Ours. Funny word, depending on who's drawing the circle. That's generous, I said. Family is everything to me. Blood or otherwise, he answered, and turned before the weight of that insult finished landing. I checked my watch. 7:38. Monique's timeline could have taught the Marines efficiency. Ceremony in 7 minutes. Receipts don't care about vows. My attorney, Denise Harper, a Spellman's sister who has eaten sharper men than Lionel in court, sat 2 tables over, leather briefcase by her feet, face calm as a Sunday morning in choir lofts. She caught my eye and tapped the case. We had talked 2 nights earlier. Malcolm, she'd said, are you sure you want me in that room? I want you where the truth can find you. I'd answered. My phone buzzed again. Avery, final installment authorization required by 9 p.m. to continue service. Ah, the wire for $340,000 that would keep the lights gilded and the lamb chops arriving. I opened my banking app. Reed Mechanical and Property Operating Account. Commas, zeros. The quiet comfort of solvency earned 1 crawl space at a time. The transfer was scheduled, not sent. Banks honor schedules like promises, until someone changes their mind. Any problem? Avery asked, appearing as if summoned by the thought. No problem, I said, provided the service meets the standard we agreed on. She nodded, a professional who knew clauses like hymns. Of course, Mr. Reed. The ceremony unfolded like a glossy magazine. Vows as polished as granite. A kiss engineered for cameras. Applause that felt rehearsed. I clapped because I remembered her baby teeth and the dimples she gets when she tells the truth. I clapped because love deserves to be celebrated even when it's wearing a mask. But celebration is a contract, too. And every contract has terms. When the room swelled and the toasts lined up like planes landing, I reached into my jacket and touched each page again. Bank statements, contracts, emails, proof stitched tight. If I stayed small tonight, I would teach my daughter that shame is payable on demand and love extends unlimited credit. I'm a plumber, a property man, a father. I know better than to let a leak run long. You end up with mold in your bones. I laid my palms flat on the linen and felt the vibrations of a place built on other people's money and other people's names. Then I stood, not angry, not loud, just done. By the time Lionel Whitaker lifted his champagne glass to make his toast, the air in that ballroom had grown tight as a drum. You could feel it, humming under the polished laughter, under the violin's high sweetness. It was the kind of tension only money and secrets know how to make. I'd been watching from my corner, table 21, the invisible man's seat, counting the seconds until someone mentioned me, the ghost father. But of course, I was a ghost by design. Nia had made sure of that. The toast began with all the standard ritual, family legacy, the sacred joining of 2 great names. That word, names, didn't sit right, because my name, the one that had paid for every inch of that marble hall, was the only one not printed on the programs. I'd spent 30 years turning Reed into something that meant more than a surname. It meant reliability. It meant call me at 3 a.m. and I'll show up with tools, not excuses. It meant I fix things people break and pretend weren't their fault. That name had built 27 properties across Georgia and paid for every dress, every meal, every college class that had shaped Nia into the woman smiling at the center of that room. And yet, as Lionel's baritone rolled through the chandeliers, he raised his glass toward Professor Franklin Moore, the man my daughter had chosen to pretend was me, and said, to the man whose steady guidance raised a daughter of grace, intellect, and refinement, Dr. Moore, we thank you for giving Nia to our family. Applause. Real applause. The kind that starts polite and ends believing itself. I didn't stand. I didn't clap. I sat there feeling my heartbeat slow until it matched the bass hum of the air conditioning. A woman at my table, Cousin Vera from Macon, leaned close, whispering, Malcolm, baby, you gotta let them jest. Sure, I said. Not yet. Because timing is everything in plumbing and life. You don't patch the pipe before you find the leak. When the clapping died, Nia rose. My girl looked beautiful, radiant in her Vera Wang gown, tears shining on her cheeks like morning dew. Thank you, Daddy, she told Franklin Moore, voice trembling. You taught me everything about integrity in class. The room melted. Phones lifted. Hashtags wrote themselves. Hashtag Black Excellence Wedding, hashtag Whitaker Moore Union. Integrity in class. From a man who had never bought her a bicycle. That was when I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was studying, watching a play I'd financed but hadn't been cast in. And when you've paid for the stage, the lights, and the orchestra, you decide when the curtain falls. Across the room, Denise Harper, my attorney, shifted slightly in her chair. A small nod. She was ready if I was. But I waited. I wanted to see how deep the lie went. After the toasts came the first dance. Nia floated across the marble floor with Julian, her new husband. The string quartet played an old Etta James tune, soft and aching. For a moment, I saw the little girl who used to dance on my work boots in our kitchen, giggling at how clumsy I was. For that heartbeat, I almost forgave her. Then the lights dimmed and a slideshow began. Photos of Nia growing up, one after another on a 30-foot screen. This she was at age 5, in front of our old shotgun house on Joseph E. Boone Boulevard. Only they'd cropped me out. The corner of my hand still showed, holding her bike steady, but my face was gone. Cut clean. This she was at 16, at her high school graduation, except the slide listed mentorship, Dr. Franklin Moore. This she was at Spelman, cap and gown with the caption, a dream made possible by faith and family. The room clapped between each photo, and I sat there watching my life vanish frame by frame. Denise caught my eye again. This time she mouthed now. Almost. I checked my phone. 8:45 p.m. Avery Johnson, the venue manager, had sent a polite reminder. Final payment confirmation due 9 p.m. or service interruption may occur. Service interruption. That phrase sat in my mind like a fuse. At the head table, Lionel leaned toward the microphone again. Before we begin dinner, he said, I'd like to acknowledge the vendors and staff who made this night possible. Every detail, every flower, every note, every bite of food has been curated to reflect the values of excellence our families hold dear. He paused, smiling toward Monique Carter, the planner. And of course, none of this would be possible without her extraordinary coordination and the generous sponsorship of the Whitaker Foundation. Generous sponsorship. That was my cue. I stood. The sound of my chair scraping marble carried farther than I expected. A few heads turned, then a few more. I walked to the stage, slow, steady. I didn't rush. When you've spent your life crawling under houses full of broken things, you learn to move carefully when something's about to burst. Excuse me, I said, and took the microphone. The quartet stopped. The laughter paused midair. Forgive the interruption, I began, but I'd like to make sure the right people get their flowers tonight. The silence after that line had a pulse. My name is Malcolm Reed, I said, voice even, and I'm the father of the bride. You could have heard a diamond drop. Across the room, Nia froze, one hand halfway to her mouth. I just wanted to clear up a little confusion, I continued. Seems tonight there's been some mix-up about who's responsible for this beautiful evening. So let's fix that. I opened the folder Denise had handed me and held up the first page. This is the contract for the Langston House Ballroom, signed by me. That's $180,000. Murmurs spread. The catering, $85,000. The floral arrangements, $29,000. The music, photography, cake. Every vendor paid through my company, Reed Mechanical and Property, LLC. I flipped another page. And here's the email chain between the wedding planner and my daughter, Nia Whitaker, formerly Nia Reed, confirming I was the client of record. I turned toward Lionel and his wife. So when you thanked the Whitaker Foundation for their sponsorship, you were mistaken. This wasn't philanthropy. This was paternity. Gasps. Real ones this time. Lionel rose, face tightening. Now see here, Mr. Reed. No, sir. You see here. I held up my phone so the big screen behind me reflected the banking app, bright and real. This business account holds $12.8 million in assets. It's the same account that transferred $500,000 to fund tonight's event. And as of 9 o'clock, I glanced at my watch. There's still a final payment of $340,000 pending. Avery Johnson, somewhere near the kitchen, visibly paled. That's the payment that keeps the lights on, I said. The one that keeps the staff serving, the music playing, the air still cool. And I'm wondering, should I send it? The whispers turned into ripples. Someone near the bar muttered, Lord have mercy. Nia found her voice. Daddy, please. I faced her. You told this room I was dead. Tears streaked down her makeup. I just wanted tonight to be perfect. Perfect, I said softly. Baby, perfection built on lies leaks faster than bad plumbing. You can patch it, but it's still gonna burst. Lionel stepped closer, his voice smooth as oil. Mr. Reed, let's not make a scene. Sir, the scene's been made. I just turned on the lights. I looked out at the crowd. People who knew me from repair calls, from city contracts, from Sunday service. Some bowed their heads. Others stared like they'd never seen a man bleed pride in public before. This isn't about money, I said. It's about respect, about truth, about the lesson every parent learns sooner or later, that sometimes you gotta let your child feel the floor give way before they remember who laid it. Then, calm as I could, I pulled out the check for $340,000. The air held still. I tore it clean in half. The sound cracked through the hall like thunder. Avery, I called. You can consider tonight's service concluded. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. Then the ballroom began to unravel. Servers froze mid-step. The quartet lowered their bows. Monique's headset buzzed like a swarm. Nia screamed, raw and human, not the polished tone she'd practiced for the cameras. You can't do this, she cried. This is my wedding. I looked at her, at the man beside her, at the world she'd chosen. It was, I said. And with that, the lights dimmed, not theatrically this time, but because the staff had been instructed to power down the rented stage rig. The hum of the air conditioner softened, and for the first time all night, I could hear the truth breathing in the silence. The story wasn't over, but the show was. When the chandeliers dimmed and the quartet fell silent, you could almost hear the heartbeat of the room, the quick, uneven rhythm of shock. Guests who'd been mid-laugh froze like they were trapped in amber. I saw forks halfway to lips, champagne flutes trembling between manicured fingers, and the first whispers crawling across the ballroom like static. It's a sound you never forget, the murmur of money realizing it's about to be embarrassed. Avery Johnson, the venue manager, hurried toward the stage, tablet in hand, her team shadowing her like Secret Service. The kind of calm panic that only professionals in luxury service know, smiling through catastrophe because the clients always come first, even when the clients are detonating in real time. Mr. Reed, she said carefully, her voice low but carrying through the microphone I still held. Can we speak privately for a moment? I looked at her, then out at the crowd. Hundreds of faces turned toward us, half disbelief, half fascination. I wasn't leaving the stage. No need for privacy, I said. We're all family here, right? Nervous laughter flickered, died. Avery hesitated. Sir, we have staff awaiting confirmation on the final payment to continue service. You have your confirmation, I said. Service is suspended. Effective immediately. Behind her, I could see the catering team stiffen. A sous chef whispered something into a headset, and within seconds, servers began collecting plates like a silent wave. The wedding of the season was shutting down. Lionel Whitaker stepped forward, face crimson, his perfect composure cracking like a porcelain plate. Mr. Reed, he began. I don't know what you think you're doing, but this spectacle, is beneath all of us. Then maybe you should have picked a different stage, I said. This is outrageous, he snapped. I'll have you removed. Go ahead, I replied. But tell your security detail they'll need to do it quick, because every camera in this room is rolling. And they were. Phones had risen like a digital forest, guests recording, live streaming, texting updates. The same people who toasted to class and integrity 5 minutes ago were now chronicling the implosion of a $500,000 fairy tale. Somewhere near the back, I spotted David Chun from the Atlanta Tribune, camera up, eyes bright. He'd been invited to cover a celebration of love and legacy. Now he was watching the headline of his career unfold. I turned back to the crowd. Let me tell y'all something about legacy, I said, voice steady. Legacy isn't what you wear or who you marry. It's what you build when nobody's watching. And for 26 years, I built my daughter's life brick by brick. She may not want to claim me tonight, but the foundation she's standing on, that's mine. Someone in the audience whispered, Lord have mercy. Again, Nia stood now, tears streaking her makeup, her hands trembling around a crumpled napkin. Daddy, stop, she pleaded. Please, you're ruining everything. I looked at her, the same eyes that once searched for monsters under her bed, the same voice that used to beg me to stay 5 more minutes before work. Baby, I said softly, I'm not ruining it. I'm just taking back what's mine. Julian, her new husband, finally stepped forward. He was trying hard to look composed, but his jaw was tight. Mr. Reed, he said through clenched teeth, whatever personal issues you have with Nia could have been handled privately. Son, I said, you're standing in a building I paid for tonight. There's nothing private about what my money built and your lies borrowed. The crowd murmured louder. Every whisper fed another. Lionel tried again, desperation creeping into his tone. Mr. Reed, let's settle this discreetly. Surely we can reach an understanding. I smiled, but it wasn't friendly. Oh, I understand perfectly. You wanted my money without my name. My daughter's love without my story. My signature without my presence. That's the arrangement, right? No answer. Just silence heavy enough to crush a chandelier. Avery's earpiece crackled. Mr. Reed, she said, we've paused dinner service. Do you wish to terminate bar operations as well? Yes, I said. Close it all down. The contract was clear. No final payment, no continued service. And just like that, the music stopped for good. Bartenders froze mid-pour. The scent of buttered shrimp and roasted duck still hung in the air, but no more plates came out. Servers began clearing tables with quiet efficiency. The string quartet packed their instruments like mourners folding flags. It was eerie, the sound of wealth going silent. Nia's scream broke through it. You can't do this. You can't. She tried to climb onto the stage, but Julian caught her wrist. Let me go, she cried. Daddy, please. I didn't move. You already let me go, sweetheart. Months ago, when you decided someone else looked better in the part. Lionel's wife, Eleanor, put a hand to her pearls like she was trying to hold them together. This is barbaric, she hissed. We will be ruined socially. That's not my concern, ma'am, I said. But maybe it should be your son's. Seems like y'all built your reputation on pretending other people's money was yours. The room gasped. I felt Denise step up beside me. Her voice carried, smooth and sharp as a blade. For the record, she said, addressing the crowd, my client's actions are entirely within his legal rights. Every vendor agreement stipulates service continuation, contingent upon final payment from Mr. Reed's business account. The Whitakers are not listed as financial guarantors on any document related to this event. Julian's face blanched. Lionel swayed slightly, like the floor had shifted under his feet. So legally, Denise continued, this reception ends now. It took about 30 minutes for the ballroom to empty. Guests fled in quiet clusters, some apologetic, most just desperate to avoid being tagged in tomorrow's scandal. Margaret Banks, a judge who'd hired me once to replace the pipes in her law office, stopped on her way out. Malcolm, she said softly, you did what had to be done. Did I? I asked. She nodded. Sometimes truth is the only invoice people understand. By 10 p.m., the Langston house was nearly silent. The only sounds were the faint hum of the exit lights and the distant thunder of storm clouds rolling across the city. Nia sat at the head table, gown crumpled, makeup streaked, looking more human than she had all night. Julian stood beside her, phone to his ear, voice low but furious. Dad, you said you handled the contracts. I heard him say. You said this was covered. Lionel didn't answer. He was staring at me from across the room, jaw tight, eyes glassy. I stepped down from the stage and walked to Nia. Each step echoed in that vast, empty space. When I reached her, she looked up, eyes red. Are you happy now? she whispered. You destroyed my wedding. I took a slow breath. No, I said. I destroyed your illusion. You humiliated me. You humiliated yourself when you killed me off to impress strangers. Tears spilled again. I just wanted them to respect me. They never respected you, baby. They respected what they thought you came from. The name. The money. But respect built on pretense collapses the moment you tell the truth. Julian hung up his phone. His voice was colder now, stripped of the fake Southern charm. Mr. Reed, he said, I'll be consulting with our attorneys. You do that, I replied. Make sure they read every clause before they call me. He glared, then turned to Nia. We're leaving. Julian, wait, but he didn't. He walked out, his shoes echoing through the marble like a countdown. For a moment, she just sat there shaking. Then softly she said, Daddy, I think I made a mistake. I sat across from her, the distance between us smaller now, but still full of years. That's the thing about mistakes, baby. Some can be fixed. Some just have to be lived through. Outside, thunder cracked. The rain came down hard, rattling against the old windows of the Langston house, like the city itself was applauding the truth finally being spoken. I stood. Come on, I said. Let's go home. She looked up, startled. Home? Yeah, I said. Your mama's house still has a light on. You can start apologizing there. She hesitated, then nodded, standing in the wreckage of her dream night. Her gown dragged through spilled champagne and broken glass. The orchestra's chairs were empty. The flowers were wilting already. And as we walked toward the doors, I thought about something my father used to say when I was young and angry. A man who won't tell the truth in public will drown in his own silence. Tonight, I hadn't drowned. I'd finally come up for air. By sunrise, Atlanta had already turned my daughter's wedding into legend. The story spread faster than the rain that had washed the marble steps of the Langston house clean overnight. Every social feed from Buckhead to College Park carried it. Bride's father shuts down $500,000 wedding. The photos were merciless. Nia in her Vera Wang, mascara streaked like war paint. Lionel Whitaker arguing with Avery Johnson, me, standing calm beside my lawyer while servers cleared untouched plates. I didn't look for the coverage. It found me. My phone started vibrating at 5:42 a.m. The first call from a number I didn't recognize, followed by 23 more. Reporters, vendors, even old clients pretending to check in. When I finally gave up on sleep, the sky outside my window was bruised purple, and the city sounded the way it always does after a storm, half drowned, half reborn. I brewed coffee the way I always do, strong enough to stand a spoon in, then sat on my porch in Cascade Heights and watched the world pretend nothing had happened. It's a strange thing to go viral for telling the truth. Folks treat you like a hero and a fool at the same time. My voicemail was split evenly between people calling me a real one and others warning-eyed, embarrassed the community. Maybe both were true. At 7:13 a.m., a black SUV rolled up to my driveway. Out stepped Avery Johnson, still in yesterday's navy suit, eyes tired but professional. She held a folder under one arm and a to-go cup in the other. Mr. Reed, she said, voice hoarse. I thought I'd better speak with you before the lawyers start calling. I nodded toward the porch chair beside me. You want coffee? She hesitated, then Saturday. I've had 3 cups already. We sat for a moment in the kind of silence that only people who've seen the same disaster can share. How bad is it? I asked finally. Professionally, she said. Controlled chaos. The Langston House's management board had a crisis call at 2 a.m. They're concerned about reputation exposure, but relieved you paid your previous invoices. Contractually, you're in the clear. Emotionally, she exhaled. They've never seen anything like it. Neither have I. You ever seen a man erase himself from his child's story? I asked. Avery gave a sad half-smile. Not publicly. We talked logistics, outstanding invoices, security footage, staff statements. Every part of the night was now evidence. Before she left, she looked at me and said quietly, for what it's worth, most of us on the team respected what you did. It wasn't pretty, but it was honest. That counts for something. When she drove away, I sat a long time staring at the steam curling from my coffee. Honesty counts for something, but not always for peace. At 8:27 a.m., my mother called from Savannah. She never wastes time on greetings. "Malcolm Eugene Reed," she said, voice sharper than church shoes on tile. "I just saw your face on Channel 11. You done gone and made yourself famous for cutting up at a wedding." "Mama," I began, but she wasn't finished. "You couldn't wait till after they said the vows. Lord, boy, you always had a flair for timing." "She said I was dead, Mama." Silence. Then softer. "She did what?" "She told 350 people I was gone. Introduced another man as her father." For a moment, all I heard was her breathing on the line. Then, "Well," she said finally, "I guess you did what needed doing. Just next time, maybe bring a quieter thunder." I laughed despite myself. "Yes, ma'am." By noon, the world outside my porch had changed color. Sunlight hitting wet streets. Cars honking like normal. Inside, my email was a battlefield. Vendors requesting clarifications. Bank confirmations of the voided payment. 3 new inquiries from property owners who'd somehow decided that a man willing to blow up a wedding was exactly who they wanted managing their buildings. Funny how chaos attracts business. But amid the noise, one message stood out. No subject line, just, "Daddy, can we talk?" I stared at it for a full minute before replying. "Come by the office." 3 p.m. She arrived 10 minutes early. Not in the gown, thank God. Jeans, hoodie, sunglasses she didn't need. She looked smaller, like the weight of that night had pressed the air out of her. "Hi," she said at the door of my office at Reed Mechanical and Property. "Come in," I said. She glanced around the space. Framed photos of construction crews, blueprints, a shelf full of awards from trade associations that don't get televised. Her reflection looked back at her from the glass of a photo where she was 10 years old, grinning in a hard hat beside me. "I forgot this picture existed," she murmured. "I didn't," I said. She sat. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "Everybody hates me." I leaned back. "That's temporary. The internet's attention span is shorter than a goldfish's." "It's not just online," she said. "The Whitakers aren't speaking to me." Julian's filed for annulment. His father told him marrying me was a strategic miscalculation. I didn't flinch. "I could have told you that before you said I do." She gave a bitter laugh that cracked in the middle. "You always warned me about people who only show up when the champagne's cold." "Yeah," I said. "You just didn't believe they'd leave when it's gone warm." She swallowed hard. "I was ashamed, Daddy. Not of you. Of how people looked at me when I said what you did for a living. Like I was from another planet. They treated me like I didn't belong. And I just wanted to fit somewhere." I let her words sit between us. "Nia," I said quietly. "I spent my whole life in rooms where I didn't fit. Construction bids with men who wouldn't shake my hand. Bank offices where they asked if I understood compound interest. I learned to let results speak louder than introductions. You can't outdress shame. You gotta outwork it." She wiped her eyes. "You always make things sound simple." "They're simple. They just ain't easy." Silence again. She glanced at the clock. "I can't go back to Julian's. I moved my things out this morning." "You got somewhere to stay?" "I'm at a hotel near Midtown, but I can't stay long. The credit cards were on his account." I nodded slowly. "Your mama still got the guest room." "I can't face her yet," she whispered. "She'll get over it quicker than you think." Nia looked up, eyes red but clear. "Daddy, are you mad at me?" "I was," I said honestly. "For about 10 years compressed into one night. But anger's a tool. You use it to build something, or it rots and ruins the house. What am I supposed to build now?" "Yourself." She nodded, biting her lip. "The article said you might face lawsuits." "Let him try," I said. Every clause was clean. I don't move without a paper trail. She smiled weakly. "You always said paperwork's a poor man's armor." "Still true," I said. "And right now, that armor's the reason you're not married to debt." For the first time, she laughed, small, genuine. We talked for 2 hours. About Spellman, about how she missed art, about how somewhere between internships and champagne brunches, she'd lost sight of who she was. I listened. Sometimes a father's best repaired job is silence. When she finally stood to leave, she said, "Daddy, what you did last night, it broke me. But maybe that's what I needed." "Broken things can be fixed," I said. "You just gotta want to work." She hesitated at the door. "Can I come by again tomorrow?" "Tomorrow's fine," I said. "Bring coffee next time. You still remember how I take it." "Black, 2 sugars," she said automatically. "See, you remember more than you think." When she left, I leaned back in my chair and exhaled for what felt like the first time in days. The office was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioner and the low whir of my computer. On the desk, my phone lit up again, another notification, another news article dissecting the night. The headline read, "From Pipes to Power, the plumber who pulled the plug on Atlanta's wedding of the year." I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt tired. Because behind every viral story, there's always a man who still has to wake up, make payroll, and keep the water running. I closed my laptop and looked out the window at the skyline, gleaming and proud and pretending nothing ever breaks. Everything breaks eventually. The trick is knowing how to rebuild. And that's what I plan to do next. Monday started the way it always does in my world, with keys jangling, diesel engines coughing awake, and men in steel-toe boots counting fittings by feel. Sunrise painted the Reed Mechanical yard the color of copper pennies. The air smelled like rain left over from the night, and PVC primer. If you squinted, you could pretend Atlanta wasn't busy trying to decide whether I was a villain or a folk hero. By 6:15 a.m., the foremen were in my conference room, coffee and travel mugs, job boards lit. We run our mornings standing, 15 minutes tight, no speeches. Site 12, I said, tapping the screen. Lennox Point Retail, replaced the 4-inch cast iron stack. Isolate by 9 a.m., reopened by lunch. No excuses. Heads nodded. Building 7, Westview, backflow test, city inspector at 2. Be ready early. I looked at TJ, a kid I'd hired out of tech school. "You ride with Marcus. No headphones on ladder work, you hear?" "Yes, sir," he said, trying not to look proud. The last thing I said was the one I always say. Leave places better than you found them. And if you can't fix it today, make it safe. When the crews rolled out, I could breathe again. Work organizes the world. At 7:05 a.m., the first camera truck eased past our gate, slow drifting like a shark. A reporter in a bright blazer practiced her concerned face into the lens. She didn't come inside. They rarely do once they smell solvents. I closed the blinds and poured another coffee, black with 2 sugars, just like my daughter remembered. Denise Harper arrived at 7:40, crisp in a slate suit, binder under her arm, expression calm enough to steady a bridge. "You look like you slept 3 hours, she said, setting the binder down. 2.5, I said. "You." She ignored the question. "Here's what's coming," she said, flipping the binder open. 1. Whitaker Council will send saber-rattling letters by noon. They have no standing, but they'll try public pressure. 2. At least 2 vendors who counted on Whitaker reputation will grumble. We'll calm them with documents. 3. The Langston House would appreciate a concise joint statement to tamp down the circus. "Joint?" I asked. "Avery Johnson is smart," Denise said. "She knows the only thing worse than scandal is indecision. She's drafting something factual, neutral, and boring. I recommend you sign it." "Boring sounds holy," I said. She slid a sheet over. Due to a contractual non-payment, service was concluded early. "We appreciate the professionalism of staff and vendors. We wish the couple well. No mud, no names, just the kind of sentence that makes lawyers sleep sound." I initialed the bottom. "What about the tip pool?" I asked. Denise blinked. "The what?" "The servers, musicians, housemen. They worked until I pulled the plug. I don't want them paying for a decision they didn't make." "You're not obligated," she said. "I'm not obligated to breathe either," I said. "But it helps." She smiled, small and warm. "I'll ask Avery for staff counts." Before she left, Denise paused at the door. "You know," she said, Most men swinging hammers don't keep receipts like you do. Receipts are a poor man's armor, I said. You ever consider teaching law? She asked. I already teach, I said. Just not in classrooms. At 8:22 a.m., my front desk buzzed. Mr. Reed, Paula said, low and wary. There's a Professor Moore here to see you. I set my coffee down. Send him in. He came in hat in hands, every bit the distinguished academic my daughter had used to decorate a lie. Close-shaved gray beard, suit a little too fine for the room, eyes that seen their share of faculty politics and funerals. He stood just inside the threshold like he'd stepped into a confessional by mistake. Mr. Reed, he said, thank you for seeing me unannounced. I nodded to the chair. He didn't sit. I owe you an apology, he said. Two, actually. Start with the first, I said. I allowed my name to be used in a way that erased yours, he said. Nia approached me months ago after a fundraiser. She said her fiancé's family thought he winced. Thought more appropriate father figure at certain events might make introduction smoother. She asked if I'd stand in occasionally. I told her absolutely not. He swallowed. Then she came back, distressed, saying you were distant, that she didn't want to burden you. She implied carefully that you'd given your blessing to my presence. I didn't verify. I let flattery fog my judgment. I told myself I was helping a young woman navigate a cruel social maze. The maze ate me too. Second apology? I asked. For enjoying it, he said, voice raw. I forgot how seductive admiration feels when students start calling you sir instead of dar. I like being useful in public again. That's not noble. It's vanity dressed as mentorship. We stared at each other a beat. The room hummed with the kind of honesty that bruises. Professor, I said, I'm not here to beat an old man for wanting to matter, but you let my child call you daddy in a room where I was breathing the same air. He closed his eyes. I know. Then do something useful with the shame. I said, write Nia a letter about why names matter. Tell her what it costs to misname a man who changed her tires and paid her tuition. Sign it with your real name. Mail it to her mother's house. No email. Paper. He nodded, grateful for instruction. I'll do that. And one more thing, I said. When reporters call you, say 3 sentences. I was wrong. Mr. Reed is Nia's father. I regret my part. Then stop talking. He smiled, sad and relieved. I can do that. After he left, I sat there a long time with my palms flat on the desk, breathing steady. Pride wants speeches. Work wants a checklist. I reached for the checklist. I called Avery Johnson and wired a gratuity pool equal to a full night's service. Musicians, bartenders, housemen, cleaning crew. Split it even. I told her. No speeches. Just make sure folks get what keeps their lights on. Avery went quiet. I'll see to it personally, Mr. Reed. At 10:03, my cell rang. A number I didn't recognize with a Decatur exchange. Mr. Reed? This is Marcus Holloway at Holloway Development. You don't know me, but I know your work. I've got a Midtown mixed use that needs a property partner with a spine. Coffee. Coffee, I said. Tomorrow, 7. I drink it black with 2 sugars. He laughed. Yes, sir. By late morning, the Whitaker letters arrived in a neat email package, boilerplate indignation scented with cologne. Denise replied with contracts attached and a paragraph made entirely of silk-wrapped steel. That was that. Around noon, I drove to West End to see Lorraine, Nia's mother. The shotgun house we'd rented when Nia was little was long gone, replaced by a 2-story we bought during a good year and never left. Lorraine met me on the porch. She has eyes that can look like harbor lights or flood lamps, depending on your honesty. You hungry? She asked. I could eat, I said, which is what Southern men say when they're starving. She fixed salmon croquettes and rice, because she knows I'm simple. We ate at the same small table, where Nia used to count peas by 2s. Lorraine watched me the way only women who have known you in poverty and in payroll can. You were loud, she said finally. I was, I answered. She told people you were dead, she said, as if testing the words for poison. She say why? She wanted to fit into a story that didn't have room for the man who built her. Lorraine nodded once, like a judge who'd already reached a verdict, but wanted to see if you could read it. You going to forgive her? She asked. Every day I don't turn my phone off when she calls is a small forgiveness, I said. But I'm not going to lie to help her feel better. Lorraine's mouth twitched. Good. She's coming here tonight. I told her she could cry on the guest pillow exactly 2 nights. After that, she better come with rent or repentance. I wired you something, I said. Groceries. Trash bags. I don't need your money, she said, then softened. But I'll take it for the sake of the girl we made. On my way out, she touched my wrist. You did right, she said. But right ain't the same as easy. Don't confuse the two. Back at the office, Paula buzzed again. You asked me to tell you when Miss Nia came by. Send her in, I said and stood. She pushed the door open carrying 2 coffees. Her hoodie was the same, but her posture had changed half an inch toward honest. She set my cup in front of me. Black, 2 sugars. Consistency, I said. The first sign of a grown-up. She grinned despite herself. Can I sit? You can ride, I said, grabbing my keys. If you want to fix what you broke, it won't happen behind glass. Ride where? She asked. Building 17. The crawl space smells like a wet dog and a promise. You're going to meet what your father's hands have been doing while you learn to pronounce charcuterie. She wrinkled her nose. I'm in jeans. Good. You won't cry when they get dirty. On the drive, she watched the city hum by. The muraled underpasses, the churches with hand-painted signs, the glass towers pretending they invented the sky. When did you buy your first building? She asked. The year you lost your first tooth. I said. $50,000 for a brick box nobody loved. Everyone told me it was a mistake. I was too stubborn to hear. I rented the bottom to a barber and the top to a grandmother, and suddenly folks said I was a genius. She smiled sideways. You were a genius. I was on time, I said. Most folks are late to their own lives. At Building 17, the superintendent met us with a flashlight and a face like rain. The crawl space had yawned dark. I handed Nia knee pads and a Tyvek suit. She stared at them like artifacts from another planet. Daddy, she said, half laughing, half pleading. You can't be serious. Baby, I said. I have never been more serious in my life. You want to be my daughter in public? Start by learning what it costs in private. She sighed, then wriggled into the suit, cursing softly when her hair scraped the hood. I taped her cuffs. She looked like a small astronaut who'd lost the moon. You'll go in first, I said. I'll be right behind you. We're checking for standing water and mold. We're going to find the leak and tag the joist. Then we'll come out and eat a sandwich. That's the glamour. She swallowed. Okay. We slid into the cool earth. It smelled like thyme and mildew and the truth. Her breath echoed in the low space. It's dark, she said, voice tight. Use your light, I said, and keep moving. She shone the beam forward. The ground glistened where it shouldn't. There, she whispered, suddenly sure. Do you hear it? A thin hiss at the far joist. She crawled toward it, my flashlight haloing her. I found it, she said, almost proud. A pinhole. Good, I said. Tag it. She looped the red tape around the pipe with shaking hands. The color looked like a decision. When we backed out into the daylight, she peeled off the hood and laughed a little wild. I smell like the inside of an old shoe, she said. You smell like work, I said. It suits you. We sat on the tailgate and split a turkey sandwich. She ate like she hadn't in days. Between bites, she said, Can I come again tomorrow? 6:30, I said. Boots, not white sneakers. And bring your own knee pads. She nodded, mouth full, eyes clear. Yes, sir. On the drive back, she fell quiet in the passenger seat. A kind of quiet that isn't avoidance, but absorption. When we stopped at a red light, she turned and studied my hands on the wheel. Scarred, nicked, steady. You were never dead, she said softly, like a confession to herself. You were just under the floor, keeping the house from falling. Baby, I said. That's what daddies do when we're doing it right. The light turned green. We rolled forward, past people who had no idea a wedding had ended so a life could start over, past the cameras that would be on to the next scandal by dinner. We had leaks to fix and invoices to send and apologies to earn in daily installments. Paper trails and crawl spaces. That's how you rebuild a name. Tuesday dawned the way good work days do. No drama, no headlines, just the sound of tires crunching gravel and voices that knew what they were about. The sky over Atlanta looked clean, rinsed by last night's rain, and for the first time in weeks, the air felt like it belonged to me again. Nia showed up at the yard gate at 6:12 a.m., exactly 18 minutes early. That told me something. She was wearing the steel-toe boots I'd left on her porch with a note that said, "Try standing in my shoes before you judge where I've walked." Her hair was tied back, and she held a notebook like a student reporting for class. "Morning," she said, eyes uncertain but awake. "Morning," I said. "You eat?" "Protein bar." "That's not eating," I said. "Coffee. Black, 2 sugars." "Good answer," I said, handing her a mug. "Let's see what you remember from yesterday." Her mouth twisted into a smile. "Crawl space inspection. Found a pinhole in the main line. Tagged it red. Marked leak point left of joist 3, 90-degree bend. Scheduled repair." I raised an eyebrow. "You practicing?" "Maybe." "That's fine. Practice is how you make what you learned yesterday look like instinct today." We walked the yard together. She watched the crews load pipe and insulation foam into trucks, listened while I went through the job list. I could feel eyes on her, curiosity, not judgment. Most of my guys had seen her picture in the papers. Half of them had daughters of their own. Marcus, my foreman, gave her a nod. "You the one who shut down a wedding for $500,000? She flushed. "My daddy did." He grinned. "Good answer." I assigned her to shadow Marcus that day. "Learn what a day costs in sweat," I told her. "And keep that notebook open. Notes are memory with a plan." By 7, the trucks had rolled out. I watched her climb into the passenger seat of Marcus's van, trying to look confident, but gripping the notebook like a lifeline. The rest of my morning filled itself. A property manager from Decatur needed an emergency crew. One of our rental units had a burst line. A supplier called to confirm our copper order. Denise texted that the Whitakers had gone quiet. I smiled at that one. Silence from rich men is as close as they come to apology. At 10:30, I drove over to the job site Marcus had taken Nia to, an old brick triplex off Edgewood Avenue. The building leaned like it had stories to tell. When I got there, I found her crouched by a trench, measuring PVC with a tape, face smudged with sweat and dirt. Marcus watched from a few feet away, amused. "She won't take breaks," he said. "Been like that since we started." Nia looked up at me, smiling despite the grime. "I'm good," she said quickly. I crouched beside her. "What did you learn?" "That a half-inch mistake at the start becomes a 2-inch headache by the end," she said, grinning. "Exactly. Water punishes impatience." She nodded, then frowned. "Daddy, can I ask something?" "Ask. Why didn't you ever tell me how successful you were? The buildings, the revenue, the properties. I thought we were always just barely making it." I wiped my hands with a rag, because money was never the point. I wanted you to see work, not wealth. Wealth without work is like running water with no pipes. Looks impressive till you try to hold it. She considered that, eyes thoughtful. "I thought you didn't care about appearances." "I don't, but people do. And sometimes the only way to teach folks like that a lesson is to let them drown in their own reflection." We finished the inspection and went for lunch at a corner diner that hadn't changed in 30 years. The waitress knew me by name, brought 2 plates of meatloaf without asking. Nia stared at the Formica counter, the faded photos on the wall, the smell of grease and coffee. "This used to embarrass me," she said softly. "These kinds of places. I tell my friends we ate at bistros instead." I cut a piece of meatloaf. And now it feels honest. That's all it ever was. After lunch, she insisted on helping haul pipe back to the truck. By mid-afternoon, she'd learned how to cut PVC, check levels, and reseal a joint without overgluing it. When Marcus dropped her off at the yard, she looked exhausted but lighter somehow. I asked. Still want to come tomorrow? She wiped her face with a rag and said, if I'm not fired. Not yet, I said, but you're on probation for enthusiasm. You're making the rest of us look bad. That night, I found myself doing something I hadn't done in years, cooking for two. I grilled chicken, made rice, put on some Coltrane. Nia arrived at 7, hair still damp from a shower, wearing the same jeans but a cleaner shirt. Mama said I could stay here for a few days, she said. She said your guest room smells like sawdust but feels like truth. She's not wrong, I said. We ate quietly for a while. When the dishes were cleared, I brought out an old photo album, the kind you have to blow dust off of. This was before you were born, I said, pointing to a picture of me standing in front of my first van. Rusted white, logo painted by hand. That's the year I started Reed Mechanical. Nia traced the photo with her finger. You look so young. I was. Didn't know enough to be scared yet. That helps sometimes. Did you ever think you'd end up here? In this house? I smiled. No. I thought success looked like what the Whitakers had. Tailored suits, handshakes, people pretending to care. Took me 30 years to realize real wealth is sleeping at night, knowing you owe no one an explanation. She nodded slowly. I think I'm beginning to understand that. I closed the album and leaned back. Tell me something, Nia. When you stood there at that wedding, introducing that professor, what did you feel? She hesitated. At first, relief. Like I'd finally crossed into the world I'd been chasing. But when you stood up, when you said your name, something inside me cracked. I was angry, but under it, I was relieved again, because the lie was finally over. I let the silence hold us for a while. Then I said, truth hurts slower than lies, but it heals faster. She smiled faintly. You should write that down. Already did, I said, on every invoice I've ever sent. She laughed, a real one this time. You're impossible. Maybe, I said, but I'm consistent. Before bed, she stood in the doorway of the guest room. Daddy, she said quietly, thank you for letting me try again. I never stopped letting you, I said. You just stopped asking. After she closed the door, I sat at my desk with a glass of bourbon, flipping through the day's messages. There were new inquiries from contractors, a voicemail from Denise saying the media storm was dying down, and a text from Avery Johnson. Servers received your gratuity. They're grateful. So am I. I smiled at that, then opened an email from David Chun, the journalist. He'd written, I'm publishing a follow-up, human side of the story. You willing to talk? I typed back one line. Only if you talk about the work, not the wedding. He agreed. The next morning's paper called it the redemption shift. His article painted a different picture. Not the angry father, but the craftsman who built dignity one pipe at a time. The last line read, sometimes the man fixing the leaks is the only one keeping the roof from falling. I tore that page out and tucked it into Nia's notebook. When she came down for breakfast, I pointed to it. That reporter wrote about you, I said. She frowned. About me. About the lesson you're learning. Read it when you've got time. She tucked it away carefully. Ready to go. Where to today? She asked, tying her boots. Bankhead warehouse. Flooded basement. You'll learn what pressure really means. She groaned. Why do I feel like that's a metaphor? Because it always is, I said, grinning. As we headed out the door, the morning light spilled across her face. She looked older, not in years, but in honesty. The girl who once chased chandeliers now walked toward crawl spaces, and I realized the strangest thing. For the first time since that cursed wedding, I wasn't thinking about what I'd lost. I was watching something new being built, slow, messy, and real. And for a man who spent his life fixing leaks, watching something finally hold felt like grace. The third morning came cold and bright, the kind of Georgia chill that makes metal ring when you touch it. Dew clung to every truck in the yard, and the sun rose like a welder's torch behind the skyline. Nia was there before me. That surprised the men, and I let their surprise hang in the air. She'd already rolled one of the pipe racks to the loading area and was checking the fittings against the order list, lips moving as she counted. Morning, boss, she said without looking up. Morning, apprentice, I said. You checked the gauges on the pressure rig? Yes, sir. Calibrated to 150 psi. I nodded, impressed but not ready to tell her that. Good. Bankhead warehouse today. Big job. Bring gloves. Already in the truck, she said. I heard Marcus whisper to another worker. She's dangerous when she's serious. By 7:15 a.m., we were rolling through Westside. The warehouse was a stubborn old brick building that used to hold cotton before air conditioning was an idea. A developer had bought it to turn into artist lofts. But first he had to face what the years had done to its bones. When we stepped inside, the air smelled like rust and rainwater. The basement, if you could call it that, had turned into an indoor pond. The concrete floor had cracked under decades of pressure, and a spiderweb of leaks lined the main wall. Nia stared at it, jaw tightening. That's a lot. That's pressure, I said. You don't fight it. You redirect it. Same with life. We gotta work. She helped me unroll the hose line, attach the pump, and check the gaskets. Her movements were slower than mine, but deliberate. She'd learned to ask questions before guessing, and that's half of plumbing right there. Halfway through, the pump sputtered. She frowned. Air in the line? Good catch, I said. Purge it. She opened the valve, watched the stream burp out water and air until it ran clear. The pump steadied, the hiss turning smooth again. She grinned. That sounds satisfying. Pressure balanced, I said. Means the system's breathing right. She looked at me. People need that too, huh? I chuckled. You're starting to sound like a foreman. We worked till nearly noon, our clothes damp and hands raw. When the new drainage line finally held, Nia let out a triumphant laugh. No leaks. Check again after lunch, I said. Confidence is fine, but proof's better. We sat on the curb outside, sandwiches unwrapped, the city buzzing faintly around us. She said, every time I think about that night, I hear myself introducing him. The professor. It's like a film I can't turn off. You'll turn it off when you replace it with better reels, I said. What do you mean? You build new memories the same way you fix a foundation, one beam at a time. Every day you show up to work instead of running from it. You're pouring new concrete. She stared at the sandwich in her hand, thinking, you really think I can undo all that damage? You can't undo it, I said, but you can make something stronger in the same place. That's better. She nodded, quiet, the sound of understanding sitting somewhere between pain and peace. When we finished, I sent her home early and stayed behind to meet the building inspector. He was an old acquaintance, Mr. Samuels, a man who used to fail me on purpose when I was young, just to make sure I'd do better next time. Malcolm Reed, he said, shaking my hand. Heard your name in the papers. Thought you'd retired to a talk show by now. Still prefer tools to microphones, I said. He laughed. Good. World needs more people who know where the shut-off valve is. We passed inspection, of course. The new pipes gleamed like silver arteries against the cracked concrete. Before I left, I took a photo. Proof that not all old things crumble when you add pressure. Some hold stronger. When I got home that evening, Nia was sitting on the porch with Lorraine. They were talking, quiet but easy. My ex-wife had that look she got when she was proud, but pretending not to be. Malcolm, she called as I stepped out of the truck. Your daughter here tells me she's learning more about water pressure than she ever learned at Yale. Yale don't make basements dry, I said, dropping my tool bag on the steps. Lorraine chuckled. Amen to that. She stood, stretching. I'll leave you all to talk. Supper's on my stove if you get hungry later. Thank you, I said. When she left, Nia looked at me, thoughtful. Mama said you used to fall asleep sitting in that same truck, waiting for her to get home from nursing shifts. That was a long time ago, I said. She said you'd bring me bottles from the gas station, chocolate milk and glass ones, and tell her you'd already fed me just to give her an extra hour of sleep. She remembers wrong, I said softly. It was strawberry. Her eyes glistened. You were there for everything, weren't you? Mostly, except the moments I missed trying to keep the lights on. We sat in silence for a while, the kind that doesn't need filling. Fireflies flickered in the yard like sparks from an old welder's torch. Finally, she said, "The Whitaker's lawyer called me." I stiffened. What did he want? To tell me I'd been removed from all their event photos and donor pages. He said it was to protect their image. You surprised? No, she said, but it still hurt. I nodded. Hurt's good. Means you still care about the right things. I told him not to call again, she said. Told him my story doesn't need editing. I smiled at that. Now you sound like a Reed. She looked at me then, not as an apology, not as the daughter caught between guilt and pride, but as a woman trying to stand on her own foundation. I want to do this for real, Daddy. Not just shadow you. I want to learn the business, the numbers, the contracts, the property side. I want to help build something that lasts. You serious? She nodded. More than I've ever been. Then we'll start tomorrow. You'll spend the morning in accounting with Paula. Then come with me to the downtown complex after lunch. That's where you'll learn how to make money sweat without spilling any. She laughed. You make everything sound like plumbing. Because everything is, I said. Every system leaks eventually. You just gotta know how to trace it. That night, after she went inside, I sat on the porch long after the streetlights came on. The cicadas buzzed, the air was warm, and for once I wasn't thinking about loss or revenge or reputation. I was thinking about legacy. A man spends his whole life building something just to watch time try to take it apart. Most times, you can't stop it. But sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to rebuild, not from scratch, but from understanding. The next morning, Nia walked into the office in a pressed shirt and jeans, notebook in hand. Paula raised her eyebrows. You sure you want to learn spreadsheets? She teased. I'm sure, Nia said. If I can learn pressure ratings, I can learn balance sheets. By lunch, she'd organized invoices better than Paula ever had. When I came back from a site visit, the two of them were laughing over an ancient filing cabinet that hadn't been opened since Obama's first term. You said you wanted her to learn the business, Paula said. She's got it handled. Maybe hire me a vacation. Don't push it, I said. That afternoon, we walked a property downtown, a 10-unit apartment building I'd bought during the recession. Nia took notes while I explained tenant law, repair budgets, and how goodwill with a tenant is cheaper than a lawsuit. She asked smart questions, even challenged my math once. When we left, she said, "This is the first time I've ever felt proud of something I actually worked for." That feeling's the paycheck, I said. We drove home in easy silence. The skyline glowed orange behind us, and I realized something simple but important. For years, I'd been building properties. Now, for the first time, I was rebuilding a person. At home, before bed, I found her sitting at the kitchen table with her notebook open. She was sketching a logo, something new, bold, modern. What's that? I asked. A rebrand, she said, smiling shyly. Reed Property and Legacy. Has a nice ring, doesn't it? I looked at it, a simple design. Our last name in clean lines, solid but elegant. It does, I said, but it's missing one thing. What? Patience. You don't earn legacy overnight. She grinned. Then I'll start tomorrow. I nodded. Good. Tomorrow's always waiting for people willing to work for it. That night, as I turned off the lights, I realized the pressure that had filled my chest since that cursed wedding had finally evened out. The system was breathing right again. Wednesday morning came soft and golden, the kind of light that makes even concrete look hopeful. The city was waking slow, but I was already halfway through my second cup of coffee by the time Nia pulled into the yard. She was punctual now, another miracle I wouldn't have dared to pray for 6 months earlier. She hopped out of her car, notebook tucked under her arm, eyes steady. Morning, Daddy. Morning, I said, pretending not to smile. You ready for some number work today? I survived crawl spaces. Spreadsheets can't scare me. Good, I said, locking the truck. Because this morning you're going to meet the bank. Her eyebrows lifted. The bank. The people who decide if dreams stay dreams or turn into drywall, I said. She laughed nervously. So no pressure, right? Pressure's good, I said. Means something's moving. We drove to Peachtree Financial, a mid-sized bank that had been backing my projects for over a decade. Inside, The lobby smelled like polished wood and old money. The same receptionist from years ago smiled when she saw me. "Mr. Reed," she said. "It's been a while." "Too long," I said. "This is my daughter, Nia." Her expression softened. "I've seen your name in the papers," she said gently. "Everyone has," Nia muttered, embarrassed. The receptionist winked. "Don't worry, baby. Every family's got a story." We met with Derek Hill, the senior loan officer. He was one of the few bankers who treated me like a partner instead of a charity case. Tall, bald, and sharp as a blade. He'd grown up 2 neighborhoods over from where I started my first shop. "Malcolm," he said, shaking my hand. "Heard you've been making headlines." "I've been trying to avoid him," I said. He chuckled. "Sometimes trouble finds people doing right. Sit down." We took seats across from his desk. Nia kept her pen ready, eyes focused. "So what can I do for you?" Derek asked. "I'm looking at a new expansion, industrial property management, mixed-use units. Something that'll outlast me." "Ah," he said, leaning back. "Legacy talk. You getting sentimental in your old age?" "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I'm just tired of letting other folks tell my story." Derek glanced at Nia. "And this must be your succession plan." Nia blushed but smiled. "Student for now, sir." He nodded approvingly. "Smart move. Don't hand anyone the keys until they know how to turn off the alarm." I watched her scribble that down in her notebook. Derek slid a folder across the desk. "You've got collateral. You've got history. You want another line of credit. You'll get it. But you'll need a co-signer for the legacy trust. You thinking of adding her name?" The room went still for a moment. Nia looked at me, startled. "I am," I said. "But she's still in training. You know I don't rush foundations." "Good," Derek said. "You never did." He stood, shaking our hands. "You two remind me of me and my boy when he first started with me. Don't let gossip fool you. This city still respects hard work." Outside, Nia was quiet until we reached the truck. Then she said softly, "You'd really put my name on something like that?" "Not yet," I said. "But one day, when you've earned the weight that comes with it." "What weight?" "Responsibility," I said. "Once your name's on the door, you don't get to walk away when things break. People call you, and they expect you to fix it." She nodded slowly. "Then I want to earn that." "You're already starting to," I said. "But legacy isn't a gift. It's a shift." The next stop was one of our downtown complexes, a tall, narrow building with peeling paint and tenants who'd been there longer than most politicians lasted in office. Mrs. Green, the elderly tenant on the first floor, met us at the door. "Mr. Reed," she said, hugging me like family. "You brought your baby girl?" "Yes, ma'am," I said. "She's learning the ropes." Mrs. Green gave Nia a once-over. "You better listen to your daddy. That man saved my roof twice. And he don't charge for hugs." Nia smiled. "I believe it." Inside, we inspected a faulty radiator, checked for leaks, and replaced a broken valve. Nia watched, took notes, even crawled behind the radiator to clean rust off the fittings. When we were done, Mrs. Green handed her a sweet tea in a mason jar. "You learnin' more than plumbing, baby," she said. "You learnin' people. Don't ever forget that part." Nia thanked her and carried that jar all the way back to the truck. On the drive back, she said quietly, "That's what I missed, isn't it? The people part." "Yeah," I said. "Business without people is just math." She nodded. "I never saw what you built up close before. I thought you just fixed pipes, but you built a whole world." I smiled. "Pipes are just veins. People are the heart." That evening, after closing up shop, I caught Nia standing by the glass front door of the office. Our logo, Reed Mechanical and Property Solutions, was printed there in clean white letters. She was tracing it lightly with her fingertip. "What's on your mind?" I asked. She looked at the name. "I used to wish it was something fancier. Now I think it's perfect." "It's honest," I said. She hesitated. "Do you think one day, maybe we could add something? Like a second line? Reed Mechanical and Property Solutions, and Legacy Development." I tilted my head. "You thinking expansion already?" She grinned shyly. "Just a dream. Dreams are blueprints, I said. You just gotta measure twice before you build. That night, I stayed late in the office, reviewing invoices, schedules, contracts. I kept glancing at the door where her reflection had been, thinking about how strange and beautiful redemption looks when it shows up early for work. Around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed. It was Denise Harper. "Malcolm," she said, "got some news. You've been invited to speak at the Atlanta Small Business Summit next month. Panel on integrity and entrepreneurship. They said your stories become something of a local legend." Legend? I laughed. That's a fancy word for plumber. "It's more than plumbing now," she said. "You've become a symbol. I'm just a man who got tired of being erased." "Exactly," she said. "And people need to hear that." I hesitated. "Let me think about it." "Don't take too long," she said. "The city could use more men like you at microphones." After hanging up, I sat there a long while, thinking about what it meant to speak publicly again. I'd already said more truth than I ever meant to at that wedding. But maybe this time, the words could build instead of burn. Before I left, I wrote something on a sticky note and pressed it onto the glass door, right under our logo. Integrity. Doing good work even when no one's watching. The next morning, Nia noticed it first thing. She smiled and took a picture. "You wrote that for me?" "For us," I said. "Every Reed who walks through this door should remember it." She studied the reflection of our names in the glass, then said softly, "One day, when I'm ready, I want my name there too. Not beside yours, but under it. Like a foundation." I nodded. That's how it's supposed to be. That weekend, while I was reviewing payroll, my phone buzzed again, an unknown number. I let it ring twice before answering. "Mr. Reed," a voice said. "This is Lionel Whitaker." The name hit like a hammer on cold steel. "Mr. Whitaker," I said evenly. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "I think we need to talk," he said, "face to face, about our families." I didn't answer right away. I could almost hear the weight of his pride over the line. "Tomorrow," I said finally. "My office. 10 sharp." "Appreciated," he said curtly. When I hung up, I looked out through the office window at the faint reflection of our name on the glass. My fingers brushed the sticky note underneath it. Integrity. Tomorrow would test exactly how much of it I had left. When Lionel Whitaker walked into my office the next morning, he brought with him the kind of silence that smells expensive: cologne, polished shoes, and unspoken pride. He was dressed like money and carrying himself like he'd invented gravity. I'd seen that kind of posture before. Men who believed they could bend the air just by breathing. "Mr. Reed," he said, voice smooth as bourbon but twice as dangerous. "Thank you for seeing me." "Didn't sound like I had much of a choice," I said. "Have a seat." He hesitated a beat before lowering himself into the chair across from my desk. His cufflinks caught the light like tiny mirrors, reflecting a man too used to control. "Let's skip the dance," I said. "You're not here for small talk." He nodded slowly. "You're right. I'm here because we both suffered losses that night. My son's reputation, my family's privacy, your daughter's dignity. Perhaps there's a way to repair some of that damage." "Repair," I said, leaning back. "That's an interesting word to use around a man who fixes broken things for a living." He cleared his throat. "I'm not here to insult you. What happened at that wedding was unfortunate. Emotions ran high, mistakes were made." "Funny," I said. "The word mistake always sounds different coming from people who've never paid for one." Lionel frowned slightly, but pressed on. "My son and Nia were young. They acted rashly. I take some responsibility. My wife and I may have pressured them into making decisions they weren't ready for." I folded my hands on the desk. "You mean the decision to erase me from my own bloodline?" He flinched barely. "That wasn't my intention. But perception is everything in our world, Mr. Reed. Appearances matter. That's a lesson your daughter learned too late." I let the words hang. Then I said quietly, "In my world, Mr. Whitaker, appearances don't stop a leak." He sighed. "Look, I didn't come to argue. I came to offer you a settlement." That got my attention, though not in the way he thought. "A settlement," I repeated slowly. "Yes, he said, sliding an envelope across the desk. $250,000, tax-free, in exchange for signing a non-disclosure agreement. No more interviews, no public commentary, no speaking engagements about the incident. We both moved forward, quietly. I stared at the envelope but didn't touch it. So you want me to sell silence? I said. You want me to pretend none of it happened? He shifted in his chair. I want to protect both our families. Your business is gaining attention. My family's name has been dragged through the mud. This arrangement benefits everyone. Accept the truth, I said. He leaned forward, his tone tightening. Mr. Reed, reputation is currency. You of all people should understand that. You've leveraged yours beautifully this past month. Your story is trending. Your contracts are up. But popularity is fleeting. This can secure your future. I smiled then, slow and deliberate. My future was secured the day I learned how to work a wrench. He looked annoyed now, like a man realizing his usual tricks weren't working. Let's not be naive. Every man has a price. Maybe, I said, but mine's already paid. He frowned. Meaning? I paid it when I spent $500,000 raising a daughter who forgot who she came from. I paid it when I tore that check in half, so she'd remember. There's nothing left for you to buy. For the first time, Lionel's composure cracked. His voice hardened. You humiliated my family. And your family tried to bury mine. I said evenly. Seems we're even. He stood abruptly, smoothing his jacket. You're making a mistake, Reed. This city forgets quickly, but not kindly. I can make things very difficult for you. I rose too, meeting his height. You can try, but men like you don't scare me. I've faced busted mains in the middle of winter with nothing but duct tape and prayer. You don't impress me. We stared each other down. Then he picked up the envelope, hesitated, and finally tucked it back into his pocket. This isn't over, he said. Sure it is, I said. You just don't like how it ended. He walked out without another word. The air felt cleaner once he was gone. Not 5 minutes later, Nia stepped into the office. She must have seen his car leaving. Was that Mr. Whitaker? She asked, wary. It was, I said. What did he want? Silence, I said simply. She paled. He tried to buy you off. Buy us off, I corrected. Her face hardened. And you said no. I said hell no. For a moment, she looked stunned. Then something flickered across her face. Pride, fierce and unexpected. Good, she said. Because I'm done being quiet too. I tilted my head. Meaning? She took a breath. David Chun, the journalist who covered the wedding. He asked to interview me. I think I'm ready to tell my side. The truth this time. I studied her carefully. You sure? Once it's out, there's no putting it back. I'm sure, she said. I don't want to hide behind someone else's name anymore. Then speak, I said. But speak with purpose. Don't do it for revenge. She nodded. I'll do it for respect. That night, she recorded the interview in my office. David Chen set up a small camera and a single light. No glam, no script. Just Nia sitting in front of a backdrop of tools, blueprints, and a wall of framed certificates. He asked her, what did it feel like that night, watching your father tear that check? Nia swallowed hard before answering. It felt like losing everything and gaining the truth at the same time. I thought money could make people love me, but I learned that love built on shame doesn't hold. David nodded. And what do you want people to take away from this? That class isn't about wealth, she said. It's about how you treat people who can't give you anything back. When the interview ended, the room was quiet except for the low hum of the lights. David packed up slowly, looking thoughtful. You too, he said, glancing between us, are changing how people talk about family in this city. After he left, I said to Nia, you spoke well. She smiled softly. I learned from you. Then you learned the right lessons. The next morning, the interview went live online. It wasn't flashy, just simple honesty. But by noon, it had been shared over 1 million times. Comments poured in from people who'd grown up invisible, people tired of pretending to fit into worlds that didn't want them. One read, this father and daughter made me call my dad today. First time in 10 years. Another said, They turned pain into principle. Nia read them all, tears glistening on her cheeks. I never thought anyone would see me as anything but that girl who lied, she whispered. You stopped being that girl the moment you told the truth, I said. That evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Denise. Malcolm, the summit confirmed you as keynote speaker. They want Nia to co-present. I looked at my daughter. Looks like we're both speaking now. She blinked. Me? On stage? Scares you? Terrifies me. Good, I said. Means you're about to grow. Later, as the sun slipped behind the horizon, I sat on the porch with a whiskey in hand, watching the streetlights blink on one by one. Nia joined me quietly, wrapping herself in a blanket. You think people like the Whitakers ever learn? She asked. I thought about that. Some do. Most don't. When you've lived your whole life thinking the world owes you respect, you never learn how to earn it. She nodded, thoughtful. I used to be like that. You were raised better than that, I said. I know, she said softly. That's what hurts the most. We sat in silence a long while, the night breathing around us. Finally, she said, I want to build something one day that carries your name and mine, but means something good, something that lasts. I clinked my glass gently against her mug of tea. Then we'll build it brick by brick, the same way we rebuilt us. Because that's the thing about real foundations. When they're cracked, you don't throw them away. You reinforce them. And that's exactly what we were doing. The day of the Atlanta Small Business Summit came faster than either of us expected. By the time the sun rose over the skyline, I'd already ironed a shirt I didn't like wearing and rehearsed a speech I hadn't planned to give. Nia stood at the mirror behind me, adjusting a navy blazer she'd borrowed from her mother. Her hands trembled slightly. You nervous? I asked. She laughed softly. Is it that obvious? Only to people who know what bravery looks like, I said. You don't get nervous when you're scared. You get nervous when you care. She met my eyes in the mirror. You always have a line ready. I've lived long enough to need him, I said. The event was held downtown at the Georgia World Congress Center, in one of those echoing halls where ambition sounds like applause. The place buzzed with entrepreneurs, investors, and reporters looking for a headline that smelled like hope. When we arrived, Denise Harper was already there, headset on, clipboard in hand, directing traffic like an air marshal. She caught sight of us and hurried over. Malcolm, Nia, you made it, she said, relieved. The organizers are thrilled. You're the final speakers of the day. Save the room from death by PowerPoint. I'll do my best, I said. Nia smiled nervously. I still can't believe they want me to talk. Denise put a hand on her shoulder. They don't just want you, they need you. This room is full of people who think success means forgetting where you came from. You two remind them it's the opposite. Inside the auditorium, the stage lights were warm and merciless. Rows of faces filled the seats, business owners, students, a few city officials, even a couple of reporters I recognized. Somewhere in the back, I thought I saw Derek Hill from the bank, giving a small nod of encouragement. The moderator introduced us, a father and daughter who redefined integrity in Atlanta business. Please welcome Malcolm and Nia Reed. Applause thundered. Nia looked at me. You go first, she whispered. I stepped up to the microphone, cleared my throat, and let the room settle. My name's Malcolm Reed. I began. I build things, pipes, buildings, and sometimes, when life allows, people. A small ripple of laughter rolled through the audience. I wasn't born into wealth. I was born into work. My hands have fixed leaks, held wrenches, and sometimes held onto hope a little tighter than they should have. A few months ago, I watched my daughter marry into a family that thought my kind of work was something to hide. I didn't take that well. I taught a lesson that night, a loud one. The audience chuckled uneasily, recognizing the reference. But here's the truth, I continued. That night wasn't about revenge. It was about respect. I didn't raise my daughter to be ashamed of where she came from, and she didn't raise herself to forget it. We both made mistakes, but what matters is what came after. I looked back at Nia, who stood behind me, her face calm, but glowing with something I hadn't seen before, peace. She came back, I said softly. And we started over, brick by brick. I stepped aside and motioned for her to come forward. She hesitated only a second before walking up to the mic. The lights caught her eyes, bright, steady, and honest. "My name's Nia Reed," she said, voice clear, "and I'm the daughter of the man you just heard from. For a long time, I thought success meant changing who I was. I tried to fit into rooms that didn't want me by pretending I came from somewhere else. But when you erase your roots, you also erase your strength. That night, when my father stood up and told the truth, it broke me, but it also freed me." The room was silent. You could hear the click of camera shutters. She continued, "I work with my father now. I'm learning the business from the ground up, literally, sometimes from the crawl space up. And what I've learned is this: dignity isn't handed to you. You build it, one honest choice at a time." The applause started softly, then grew, rolling through the room like thunder. Nia looked startled at first, then smiled through it, tears catching the light. When it quieted, I joined her again at the microphone. "People ask me if I do it all again," I said. $500,000, a ruined wedding, a family name dragged through every headline in Georgia. My answer's simple: yes. Because money comes back. Time sometimes does, too. But self-respect? Once that's gone, you spend the rest of your life trying to buy it back. The applause returned, longer this time, louder, warmer. Afterward, people crowded around us, business owners, students, even a few former clients. They wanted photos, handshakes, advice. One man, a construction manager from Savannah, said, "My daughter stopped talking to me when I lost everything in '08. After hearing you two, I'm going to call her tonight." Nia squeezed his hand. "Do it," she said. "It's never too late to rebuild." We left the conference after sunset, the city lights flickering against the glass towers. As we walked to the truck, Nia was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You know what the best part was?" "What?" No one looked at me like a scandal anymore. They looked at me like someone who learned something. I smiled. "Because you did." When we got home, there was a box on the porch with a bow, no card. Inside was a framed photo of us from the conference, already printed in the Atlanta Journal's evening edition. Someone had circled the headline, "Reed Legacy, from Scandal to Strength." Underneath, in smaller handwriting, someone had scribbled, "Keep building." I had a feeling it was from Derek. Later that night, as I sat in my office, I heard Nia in the next room on the phone with her mother, laughing for the first time in months. The sound filled the house in a way I hadn't realized I'd missed. When she hung up, she came into the doorway. "Daddy." "Yeah, baby. I want to show you something." She pulled out her notebook, the one she'd been carrying since the first day she came to the yard. Inside were pages filled with sketches, notes, and ideas. She turned to one page near the back. At the top, she'd written in bold letters, "The Reed Foundation." "What's this?" I asked. "It's something I've been thinking about," she said. "A scholarship program. For kids like me. People who want to build, design, create, but can't afford the first step. We could start small, maybe 1 or 2 students a year. Call it the Brick by Brick Grant." I looked at her, speechless. "You'd run it," she said, "but I'd handle the outreach. I want to give back what we almost lost." I reached across the desk and covered her hand with mine. "You don't know how proud that makes me." She smiled, eyes glistening. "I think I do." The next morning, I met with Derek Hill at the bank again. When I told him about Nia's idea, he grinned. "You two don't sit still, do you?" "We've been still long enough," I said. He nodded. "I'll draft the paperwork. We'll make it official." By the end of that week, the Reed Foundation, Brick by Brick Grant, had its first account. It wasn't much, just $20,000 to start, but it was ours. That night, as we stood in front of the office door, I added one more sticky note under the logo. The first one said integrity. The new one said legacy. Nia read it aloud. "Integrity builds it. Legacy keeps it." "Exactly," I said. She smiled, resting her palm against the glass, where our reflections overlapped in the faint light. "You think we'll ever stop rebuilding?" I shook my head. "Never. The world's full of cracks. Our job is to keep sealing them, one honest repair at a time." The next chapter of our lives was already waiting. Blueprints, permits, maybe even peace. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking backward. The leaks had been fixed. The foundation was solid. And the name on the door finally felt like home. The first scholarship recipient of the Reed Foundation arrived on a rainy Saturday morning. His name was Devin Brooks, 17 years old, skinny as a ladder, wearing work boots 3 sizes too big, and a look of nervous determination that reminded me of myself 40 years ago. He stood in the doorway of the office, water dripping from his jacket. "Mr. Reed?" he said, voice cracking a little. I got the email." I smiled. "You must be Devin. Come in before you drown out there." He stepped in, clutching his worn backpack like it was a lifeline. Nia came out from the back room, carrying 2 mugs of cocoa. "You made it," she said warmly. "Congratulations, Devin. You're our first scholarship student." He blinked. "First? You mean like ever?" "Ever," she said. "You're the start." We gave him a tour of the office, the repair bays, the workshop, the project boards with blueprints pinned up like proud trophies. When he stopped in front of the wall of framed photos, our past crews, completed projects, and community events, he stared for a long moment. "You built all this?" he asked. "Brick by brick," I said. "Same way you'll build your own path." He nodded slowly. "My mama always said hard work never goes unnoticed, but sometimes it feels like nobody's watching." "Oh, they're watching," I said. "They just don't clap until the work's done." That afternoon, we took him out to one of our job sites, a community center renovation project downtown. Devin watched every move like it was gospel. When I showed him how to measure a copper pipe fitting, he asked a dozen questions, each one sharper than the last. By the end of the day, his hands were dirty, his shirt stained, and his eyes alive. "I never knew work could feel like this," he said. "Feels like what?" Nia asked. "Like purpose," he said simply. That night, as the 3 of us locked up the office, I looked at Nia and realized something had shifted again. She wasn't just learning the business anymore. She was shaping it. The girl who once chased a seat at someone else's table was now building a whole new one. A few weeks later, a letter arrived. Handwritten, no return address. The envelope was cream-colored, the kind that smells faintly of perfume and apology. I opened it at my desk. The handwriting was unmistakable. "Mr. Reed, I've spent the last few months reflecting on what happened between our families. I don't expect forgiveness, but I owe you acknowledgement. You exposed the truth that night, not just about money, but about integrity. I've since stepped back from several boards and taken time to reconsider what legacy really means. I was wrong to think reputation could replace respect. Please extend my sincere apology to Nia. She deserved better from us all. Sincerely, Lionel Whitaker." I read it twice before sliding it across the desk toward Nia. She read it quietly, then exhaled. "Well," she said, "that's about as close to repentance as pride allows." "Sometimes that's all you get," I said. "Sometimes it's enough." She smiled faintly. "You think he means it?" "I think he's learning," I said, "and that counts." Spring rolled into summer, and the business thrived. New contracts came in weekly, not because of pity or publicity, but because people respected how we operated. We didn't promise perfection, we promised honesty. The foundation's first project expanded faster than we expected. Local schools reached out about partnerships. Trade unions offered mentorships. Even the city council recognized the program at a civic award ceremony. When they called us up to accept the plaque, Nia insisted Devin come too. Standing on that stage between them, my daughter on one side, the kid who reminded me of my own beginnings on the other, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, peace. They handed me the microphone. I looked out at the crowd, rows of faces, some familiar, some new, all of them waiting. "I spent most of my life fixing things," I said. "Leaky pipes, cracked walls, broken systems. But the hardest thing I ever fixed wasn't a building, it was my own family. You can't weld a heart or caulk a relationship. You have to show up every day and do the work." I looked at Nia. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you build while you're still here. Applause rolled through the hall. When we stepped off stage, Nia squeezed my hand. "You did good, Daddy." We did good, I said. One evening, months later, I found myself standing in front of that same office door where everything had begun. The glass still bore our logo, Reed Mechanical and Property Solutions. But now, beneath it, in clean new lettering, it read, Reed Legacy Group, integrity in every foundation. Nia had surprised me with it on my 71st birthday. I thought we could make the name match what we've become, she'd said. And she was right. We weren't just fixing pipes anymore. We were fixing stories, people's stories, broken by pride, silence, or shame. That night, I sat at my desk alone after everyone else had gone home. The air smelled faintly of sawdust and solder, the scent of honest labor. I pulled out an old photo from the drawer. Nia at 6 years old, sitting on my shoulders at the county fair, cotton candy in one hand, her other hand holding my face steady so she could plant a sticky kiss on my cheek. Guess we made it, baby girl, I whispered to the empty room. The clock ticked steady. The world outside hummed. Somewhere in the distance, a train blew its whistle, that long, lonely note that sounds like both ending and beginning. I closed the office lights and stepped outside into the warm Georgia night. The stars were faint through the haze, but they were there, same as always. A few days later, I got a call from David Chun, the journalist who'd covered the story from the start. Mr. Reed, he said, I wanted to let you know the interview series with you and Nia won a regional award. People are calling it one of the most powerful father-daughter stories in years. I chuckled. Tell them it's not a story. It's just life with receipts. He laughed. That's exactly why they love it. Would you two be open to a follow-up piece, one about forgiveness? Maybe, I said, but only if it's not about the scandal anymore. Make it about the rebuilding. That's what I was hoping you'd say. When I hung up, I turned to Nia, who'd been listening nearby. What do you think? I asked. She smiled. Let's do it. People need to know you can come back from anything, even from your own mistakes. I nodded. Then let's tell them. The final scene came months later at the ribbon-cutting ceremony for our newest project, the Reed Learning Center, built on land donated by the city, designed as both a training facility and community space. The mayor cut the ribbon. Cameras flashed. Nia gave a short speech about opportunity, then motioned for me to speak. I looked around at the crowd, students, parents, workers, neighbors, people from every walk of life. 30 years ago, I began. I was just a man with a wrench and a truck that coughed more than it ran. Today, I'm still a man with a wrench, but now I've got a family, a team, and a purpose that outlasts any paycheck. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this. Never be ashamed of the hands that built your tomorrow. Applause swelled again. Nia stood beside me, eyes shining, and Devin beamed from the front row. When the noise died down, Nia whispered, You realize we came full circle, right? Yeah, I said, voice thick. But this time, we built the circle ourselves. We stood there a long time, watching people stream through the doors into a place that would outlive both of us. As the last camera flash faded, I turned to my daughter and said quietly, If your mama could see us now, she'd say, It's about time. Nia said, smiling. I laughed. Yeah, she probably would. The crowd moved around us, but for a moment it was just the two of us, father and daughter, builder and builder, standing in the doorway of something new. Not a wedding hall, not a mansion, but a place made from truth, sweat, and forgiveness. The kind of place that proves some foundations don't just hold buildings. They hold people. And as I locked eyes with Nia, I realized that for the first time in my life, every brick, every scar, every dollar, every heartbreak had led exactly here. This was legacy. This was home.